Hello, everybody, and welcome to Table Talk for the month of November. In November, I am interviewing our celebrity chefs of sports teams, and so excited to have Joe with us, Chef Joe with us here today. But before I introduce him, want to just take a minute, introduce myself. My name is Joni Rampolla. I'm one of the registered licensed dietitians with the Giant Company, so your Giant and your Martins. And we are going to dive in and learn what it's like to be a chef of a sports team. Joe, you want to take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Joe Seitz. I've been only with the Philadelphia Union for a few months here, but I've been working for the last 5 or 6 years actually with the Philadelphia Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. So it's kind of a, it's sports and entertainment is the world that I live in, and it's totally different than a hotel or restaurant, but it's you know definitely exciting and always changing, right?
It sounds exciting, yes.
Yeah.
So you said it's different from a restaurant. Let's start off with, how is cooking for athletes different from cooking at a restaurant?
Well, cooking for athletes is definitely, we want to, it's catering, right? So they come in 5, 6 days in a week, and their menu is always going to change, right? There's an emphasis on protein and carbohydrates and all. Whereas in a restaurant, menus will stay the same for the most part, right? Menus kind of, change seasonally, maybe monthly. And, restaurants, they don't all rely on it, but they use deep fryers and everything like that, that, we want to kind of keep away from professional athletes. So basically the biggest difference would be portion sizes, right? Like I mentioned, we're catering every day. And then certain techniques like fried foods, we try to avoid. Yeah.
Yep, got it. So I have a customer question. What is the most unique dish that you make?
So I mean, I wouldn't say that it's all that unique, but we try to especially with the soccer team, right? We have players from all over the world, and every now and again we will spotlight, a specific type of cuisine. Um, I think the easiest version for us would be Caribbean food, like Jamaican food specifically. Our goalie, our star player, Andre Blake, is the captain of the Jamaican national team, and he's been around the union for years, right? So not to mention Korean food is something that our staff likes to, cook. So we try to key in on that. And it's not necessarily one thing like jerk chicken or rice and peas or, but that style of food, I would say, is what we like to key in on.
Yeah, customer wants to know, how many different cultures do you cook for?
It's a good question. And I wish I actually knew the answer, because I kind of think about that pretty frequently. I'd say there's about a dozen, significantly different cultures represented on our team. It's mostly American players, right? But soccer being a global sport, we're getting these amazing players from other countries, and there's definitely a good variety.
Do you have a favorite team moment around food that really stands out to you?
Yeah, so maybe a month or so, maybe 2 months ago, we decided to make pho for the team. For those that are not familiar, pho is like a Vietnamese beef and rice noodle soup. Usually get steak with it, or other cuts of beef in there. And it's something that, like my wife and I, we really like to, we enjoy going to pho restaurants, and we live in South Philly, so it's about 20 minutes away from the stadium. But South Philly is actually like kind of a hub for Southeast Asian restaurants, and you get some like very authentic cooking there. So to kind of try to replicate what we order at these restaurants, and you know uh, present that to the team and introduce some of these guys to it was a nice experience.
Nice. Can you walk
Yeah.
us through what a typical game day menu might look like?
Yeah, so game day, believe it or not, we don't do all too much for the team. Um, they're not really required to be here all morning before the match, right? They come a couple hours, maybe 3, 4 hours at most, before. So we do provide food like sandwiches and wraps and fruit. Um, but for the most part, their pregame nutrition is up to them. Each player is a little different, right? Some folks like to eat light. Some people, have had their routine, I'm sure, since they were a kid. And like I mentioned, like that's kind of up to them pregame. So we just kind of try to provide like kind of simple like grab and eat things if they happen to be hungry pregame. But it's nothing really elaborate, you know.
Yep. When do you cook for the team?
I'm sorry, when do we cook for the team?
Yeah,
Um,
customers asking.
oh, gotcha. So they train regularly here, 5 or so days a week on average, depends how much they're traveling. And then, during international breaks, you can kind of treat it like a everyday 5 day a week job, right, for them. But for the most part, the weekdays we provide breakfast and lunch. Um, of course, we'll provide like post game meals when requested, but it's for the most part breakfast, lunch, on the dates in between their matches.
Excellent. And
Yeah.
customers asking, chef, do you create the menus yourself, or are there nutritionists or dietitians who do so?
So it's a blend, right? I actually have the team of I have an executive sous chef and a couple of other sous chefs who will collaborate and create the menus, right? And from there, we kind of, check it off and then send it over to the team nutritionist. And they will put their seal of approval on it. Sometimes the team like nutritionists will suggest items or even beverage. So it's definitely a collaborative effort. And it's one of those things we're always looking for a lot of ideas. We don't want we don't want the players to experience kind of like, I guess you could say like food fatigue, right? When we all experienced it when we were younger, where it's like, mom made this again. It's not always a bad thing, but we want to try to keep a steady variety of food available for them. So the more suggestions, the better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
A customer wants to know who inspires you where you're cooking.
Who inspires me? So I gotta tell you, I wouldn't say that it's any one person or area of my life, but I think that food, especially like in the last like 10 or so years, has become more available through media, and it's more of a talking point. People are really interested in celebrity chefs and fine dining and stuff that maybe they weren't necessarily interested in a few years ago. So I think that like maybe I'm just centered in it. My wife's also in the hospitality world, so we're kind of surrounded by a lot of really talented restaurant and hospitality folks. And I guess it does come from everywhere. So I don't know. I don't know that I really have one specific area. I think it's when we go out to eat with our friends, when I see something on TV, it's there's a lot of things that are out there that can catch my attention.
Yep. When you're thinking about preparing a dish, do you go to farmers markets, or are most of your items delivered?
So at home, I do try to shop local, right? Um, we don't necessarily always have that luxury of having the ability to purchase from smaller distributors or producers. Most of our items are, here they're delivered. But at home, I mean, especially living in Philadelphia, there's a few like smaller like mom and pop stores that I can go to, or
Or your
if
local
I
giant?
I do live in between like three giants actually, and you know, um, this was not rehearsed or anything, but you know, there was like a major facelift that happened a few years ago, and I've been a fan ever since. So, you know,
Nice.
and they always have a great selection too, in the produce and fresh food areas. So, Giants definitely a good one.
Yep. Are there
Yeah.
any testing performed on athletes to determine individual meals?
Not necessarily. I think that our nutritionist is, you know, she's definitely great because we don't have a million limitations. When I first, you know, started working with this team, I kind of anticipated that, and she seems to have a good grasp on, you know, what these guys should be consuming, right? These are, you know, soccer players are kind of like in the best shape out of maybe any athletes, right? Think about all the cardio that they go throughout the, you know, their training schedule, and then like in a match, like they run probably close to 10 miles in a night, right? And so when you're exercising like that, and when you're burning so many calories, you can kind of eat whatever you want, right? Now I'm sure there are players that, you know, maybe don't have such a healthy approach, you know, compared to others, and maybe they need a little bit of coaching and all, but for the most part, these guys are eating pretty normal food.
Great. Has there
Yeah.
ever been a meal that flopped with the team? And what did you learn from it if that happened?
Yeah. So, um, items that may not be as approachable or as common, generally need a little bit more explanation. And when they need a little more explanation, you're not going to sell as much, right? So, arepas was something that recently, like, you know, we tried, and they're delicious for anybody who's never had it. It's essentially like a stuffed tortilla, um, similar to a gordita in Mexican cuisine, but in like Central and South American food, they call it arepas, right? So, you know, we have again people from a huge like spectrum of backgrounds and everything. A lot of these guys have never had South American or Central American food before. So it took a little bit of negotiating and explanation, but you know, for you know, and it's anything can be hit or miss, right? But arepas specifically were not like the biggest mover, you know.
Yep. So on the flip side of that, what has been your proudest moment as team chef?
Well, it's not necessarily like food related, right? But just being there, you know, on the field when they were celebrating the supporters shield victory, right? The best record in the league. It's a unique moment. Like I mentioned, I was working at Citizens Bank Park, the Phillies Stadium, for a few years, and I got to see, you know, World Series. I got to see a couple deep playoff runs. And you know, being a sports fan my whole life, you know, seeing these guys like experience it up close and personal, um, is it's a really unique experience, you know.
Do you hear the players say anything about getting the supporter shield? Like what's the buzz on the with the team?
Yes, but you know what? I honestly don't really. I mean, like they were obviously really excited, but I think the bigger picture is the MLS Cup. Right now, in we're in the playoffs, right? So we have, you know, a few more games to get there, but they've been playing really well, and I think that that's the focus. Obviously, they're excited that they got the shield and all, but there's bigger and better things to come.
I understand that,
Yeah,
absolutely. A
yeah.
customer is asking, are you aware of any players that are good cooks themselves?
So a handful of them are interested in it, and one of our distributors, PFD Prime Food Distributors, is a protein distribution company. They actually have a few clips on, I guess it was Instagram, with, you know, about half a dozen of our players, and they seem to be doing pretty well. I haven't necessarily followed up on it, you know, but you know, the food looked pretty good. So yeah.
Nice. A customer wants to know your suggestion for what's a cut of beef would you use to make a tender roast beef dinner?
A tender roast beef dinner. So you can go a thousand different ways. It all depends on how, if you want an actual large roast, how many people you're serving. I think, if you're slicing it, right, you want to go prime rib. I think that's the king of meats right there is ribeye. But if it's something that, it may be something similar to a pot roast, I mean, I would get some chuck and or chuck flap short rib. You can dice that up and sear it in a pan, and then roast kind of or saute any kind of like vegetable that you really want to use and braise it. So there's a couple of different ways. So either I guess a prime rib, or if you're going for stew, I guess a chuck roast. Yeah.
Tell us about your off season. What do you do? How does your job change?
So I have not yet experienced an off season in this stadium, right? But with the baseball season, which kind of lines up with soccer schedule, the off season is used for planning, right? We have a lot of menus that need to be written. We have a lot of staffing concerns that we address. And, we try to forecast what we can as far as production, right? Of course, we take some time off because, professional sports schedules, it can be, you can have some long work stretches, right? But for the most part, our off season, we're still in here 5 days a week. It kind of turns into an office job because there is a lot of Excel spreadsheets, costing menus, seeing what our client wants. We're not only responsible for feeding the team here, right? We're responsible for all of Subaru Park, so the club areas and the premium dining areas like our suite boxes, concessions as well. I try to give that department a good, a good amount of help there where I can. As well as we also have a brand new sports training complex, which is a handful of soccer fields and basketball courts and like catering areas. So we actually see 3 different buildings in our operation. So it's not just, feeding the team. I kind of wish it was some days because 100 people would be a lot easier to deal with than 17,000 on game day. So we stay busy with a lot of office work.
Yeah. Do you travel with the team?
No, I don't. I haven't had the opportunity to do so yet, but I don't believe that I would be.
Okay. What's the
Yeah.
difference between cooking for baseball players versus soccer players?
So at that stadium, believe it or not, we were not really cooking for the Phillies all too often, right? But what I would say with the limited experience that we have with that, because they would have their own like a private third-party company chef cook for the
And we are
clubhouse.
interviewing that chef that does cook for the Phillies coming up.
Oh, okay, cool. So I don't know that I've met that guy. I think that you have a new you'll be interviewing a newer version of that chef. Anyhow, I gotta imagine it's pretty similar. I mean, pro athletes, like they're not just good at sports. They're real professionals. They treat it more seriously than I'm sure a lot of people treat their 9 to 5 jobs, right? They're always training. They're always looking for a way to get better. So they're not looking to just eat because they're hungry. A lot of them are looking for kind of rocket fuel. I'm sure there's guys like I mentioned before that need a little bit of more direction than others, but I think that like the emphasis should be on like quality ingredients and the right kind of cooking, avoiding those heavier calorie, like kind of empty calorie techniques. And again, yeah, just these guys, they treat their bodies like a temple. You got to give them the good stuff, right?
Absolutely, because they know nutrition affects your performance. So love that. Yes.
Yeah.
So do you have any funny or memorable moments in the kitchen that you can share with us?
Um, I mean, yeah, honestly, I have a million of them. Like some of my best friends are the people that I worked with when I was, starting out as a 19 and 20-year-old cook. That, it's all the stuff you hear and see in movies that, like kind of crazy stuff. So I don't necessarily have one um particular thing. I mean, things go wrong all the time, right? And it's not always funny in the moment, but to be able to look back and say, wow, what a bonehead thing to do, or just, you know, how unlucky were we? It's fun to sit back and laugh at that.
Yep. Customer wants to know how many people actually report into you.
So I can pull up staffing real quick. I have a relatively small team at this location. So I think I only have about 20 people that are in our kitchen regularly during a game day. Um, the baseball stadium, it was closer to 50, including all the runners and utility workers. But here it's about 20 people.
All right. Dietitian wants to know, do you try and make like comfort foods or foods that you know will go over well? Any healthier, like anything that you do as a chef?
Yeah, so there's a something that I often tell people when they ask this, right? Is um, you don't want to go substituting, something in kind of like a comfort food or a dish that everybody knows that just is not the right thing. Like for macaroni and cheese, you would never try to substitute the cheese, right? It just wouldn't be the same. You can't call it the same, right? So you certainly don't want to, you know, go trying to, put lipstick on a pig, right? But what I do suggest is when you're trying to limit or cut out a certain, let's say like salt, like a certain part of a meal. There are other bits of, I guess you could call it the taste spectrum, that you could rely on to combat or make up for the lack of something. So think about, when you hear about somebody loses their sight or their hearing, they say that the other senses are, one of them will heighten, right? And you can kind of do the same thing. So like salt, for instance, you can make something a little more spicy, right? We have we have salt, certain tastes. We have salty, fatty, sweet, spicy, and then umami, which is kind of like the unexplainable, just like savory flavor. If you cut out one of them, you can heighten another one, and usually it'll mask that.
Got it. What do you do with leftover food?
So we have, like I mentioned, about 20 people that work on our staff, and other departments in the building also staff during, I guess you could call them down days. So leftover food, we try to repurpose into staff meal, right? And if we can cool it properly, if we can package it properly, it doesn't have to get wasted or composted the very next day. So, thankfully we have some people that actually care about food waste on our team, and we try to feed people responsibly, right?
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever have a night that you just offer a fun pub style food like nachos or wings?
Yeah, I mean that's concessions, right? And frankly, like when I go to as I'm a sports fan myself, when I go to other arenas and I go to, and I'm hungry, I don't necessarily want something that I can get at a sit down restaurant. I want
Yeah.
the concession stand item. I want the fair kind of food, so we often, rely on handheld items, right? Whether it's a taco, nachos, wings, a slider, something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be the generic version of it. We try to put a little twist on it. But that's our bread and butter. Yeah.
So one things maybe like fans or our customers would be surprised to learn about how professional athletes actually eat?
I kind of touched on it earlier. Like these guys are, in amazing shape, right? And they're not all, drinking kale smoothies and eating like acai bowls and measuring each, ounce of food that they eat. But as long as it's not I don't know, French fries and like candy, like these guys can kind of eat anything, you
Okay.
know. Yeah.
Do you have a pro chef tip that you want to share with our audience? Maybe something they can do at home?
Yeah. So I think if you're a pretty avid cook, right? I think that like there's something that I wouldn't go giving like too many like tips on how to season your food or maybe like some cooking techniques are there, but I think that's something that would help out a lot of home cooks, right? Is organizing your, we call it mise en place. It's French for kind of saying that everything has its own place. So if you were to, bake a cake or something like that, right? You want to measure out your flour, you want to measure out your sugar, you want to crack your eggs and have them all ready, within arm's distance or so that you can just go one into another without having to measure flour, pour it into a bowl, stop, go to the refrigerator, get your eggs. I think if you set yourself up to work with, kind of like an order of operations or something, that would definitely help. And also cleaning as you're going. I have to remind my wife every now and again, that she should be doing that, So not that we both cook plenty at home, but I always have pointers and I try not to be too critical. Yeah.
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 Do you specialize in any type of cooking, like for an example, vegan?
No, not necessarily. I try to embrace kind of anything that I can learn a little bit about. Um, it's kind of goofy, but maybe I do specialize in, I guess, like pizza shop stuff. It's where I got my start as a teenager, and being in Philadelphia, we love hoagies, we love cheesesteaks, we love that kind of stuff. And it doesn't have to be the generic version of it. We can kind of make it a bit more upscale and do it better than the last time that we did it. But it's I wouldn't say that I'm an expert or specialized in any one area. Yeah.
Okay. What's
Yeah.
your favorite meal to prepare for the team?
So they really love, or at least it's kind of become sort of a pregame ritual, eating waffles for breakfast the day before a game, and then for lunch that day, chicken parmesan. Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So any favorite quick recipe or snack that the audience could try to eat like a union player?
Yeah. I mean, that might actually be it. It's the like I mentioned, the chicken parm, it's I was surprised to hear that they've been eating that almost ritually. And because I don't know, again, like having the expectation of these guys needing like the cleanest diet and everything. Not that they don't eat clean, but that's something that I would almost say is specific to our menus.
Customer wants to know how many unique meals do you typically make in a season?
Question. I would say probably 2, 3 times a month we try to lean into um, a meal from somebody's specific background. Or we have a really good executive sous chef here, Mallory, who she's also always looking for unique meals to make, because it's not just about our the chefs on our team, or I'm sorry, the players experiencing food fatigue, but it can also be the chefs on our team kind of getting tired of cooking the same thing over and over.
Any meals that are heavy in your rotation?
Yeah, the waffles and chicken parm. I mean, breakfast kind of stays the same throughout the week. Like we have we always do eggs, right? We have eggs and then a rotating kind of breakfast protein, as well as a couple pastries here or there, and yogurt. So breakfast kind of stays the same, although we do change up. Like the pancake will never really be the same 2 or 3 days in a row. We'll do waffles again, like I mentioned, French toast. Um,
Yep. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
last question for you. Any tip or favorite recipe or meal idea that you can share for the upcoming holidays, such as Thanksgiving?
So with Thanksgiving, right? Everyone, seems to have their favorites, and every family member that's cooking has, everybody kind of knows what the good things that they make are. So, uh, myself, I don't, and Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I'm a big eater, and it's nice to be around the family and everything. Um, I don't necessarily think that I have one specific favorite item, but I think that a technique that people ought to pick up on when it comes to Thanksgiving is actually like taking the cooked turkey and cutting off the whole breast and slicing it, or cutting off the whole drumstick and shredding that for, your dark meat. And same with the thigh. I think that, folks would benefit from kind of a cleaner slice of turkey, as if you were to slice it like, a whole like turkey breast rather than right off of the bone, because it can kind of get shredded, or may not look as nice. And in turn, you may not be yielding as much off of the turkey. So that's something that I don't know if it's because I'm a chef and I kind of look at things a little differently, but it's something that I feel like folks would benefit from. And
Yep.
every year
Great tip.
seems to be somebody who kind of looks at it and says, wow, I've never seen somebody do it before, but you have, it just maybe not at Thanksgiving.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these great tips and
Yeah,
ideas and giving us some insight into the Philadelphia Union team. We so appreciate you and your time. And thank you
absolutely.
to everybody that joined us here and tuned in. We appreciate you as well and hope you join us again in the future. Thank you all. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.